I really want to thank the team that puts together the worships every week. I know Anton does this regularly, and I hope we all are very thankful to Lynn and Jesse and Chris and Jerome and whoever else is involved. I'm sure there's more people that are involved, but you guys do an incredible, incredible job, and I appreciate it. I really enjoy our worship service. You guys do a good job of making it as good as if we were live. So I'm sure we can't really replace live, and I'll be glad to get back to live. But I'm really thankful that we can do this together, and it's always great to see everyone and hear everyone's voices. To hear Cheryl this morning, it's great to hear her voice, and to see people's faces. It's always a good thing. There's a lot of positive going on. This week. Hopefully, spring is here. Amen. I've heard several people mention that. It's great to have warmer weather, more light, to see things blooming. More and more people are getting vaccinated. I heard a statistic this morning that about 23 million people in the United States have been fully vaccinated. So I think that certainly helps, and hopefully that helps our mindset. And if you have been vaccinated, hopefully I'm sure that helps your mindset as well. And then, this past week, I would say most of us got some extra money, right? Some the stimulus check. So, that's positive and makes us feel good. So, all this positive stuff's going on. But today I wanted to talk about pressure, hardships, and troubles. So, hey, the message will end up being positive, but let's talk about pressure and hardship and troubles. And we'll talk about how we handle pressure, hardships, and troubles, and how we can help other people handle pressure and hardships and troubles. I know a few of you on here are golfers, and you watched some golf. Last weekend, they had the PGA tournament, the Players Championship, and that's considered like the fifth major, would be like the fifth most important tournament around. And on the 18th hole, on the last day, Justin Thomas was leading by one shot, and he hits this ball, and over to the left is a big old pond of water, and his ball hits by the water and takes several bounces right by the water. And they said that they were measuring his heart rate then on some device he had, and his heart rate jumped up as he was watching that ball bounce by the water, because if the ball would have gone in the water, then he probably would have lost. He was only one shot ahead, but he ended up, I think, getting a par on that hole and winning a prize of about $2.7 million. And then the second place guy comes to the 18th hole, and he's got a 15-foot putt, 14 feet and 9 inches, and he hits that putt. And when they, tabulate how much everyone won, I mean, that putt was actually for $500,000. I mean, imagine the pressure if you were out there putting the ball, a 15-foot putt, for $500,000. That would be a lot of pressure. I'm sure Hoyt would, drain it, no problem. Robert and I, we have a hard time hitting those anyway, right, Robert? So I can't hit a 14 or 15-foot putt with no pressure. So we face pressure in our lives. We face hardships. We face troubles. Let's look in 2 Corinthians chapter 1. Jerome read the first part of this verse. So we will read through it again. And thank you, Jerome, for actually, I think Jerome and I probably on the same mindset there. The Spirit was moving. Perseverance. Certainly, we need to persevere to live the life God calls us to. We need perseverance. Anybody needs perseverance to survive life. We need to realize that we're in a race. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 3. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. If we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings we suffer. And our hope for you is firm, because we know that just as you share in our sufferings, so also you share in our comfort. We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about the hardships we suffered in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, in our hearts, we felt the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us. As you help us by your prayers, then many will give thanks on behalf for the gracious favor granted us in answer to the prayers of many. This is a great passage. We're going to be spending most of our time here this morning, and we'll be jumping around to other passages, but back when we had physical Bibles, you could, put your finger in the place and flip over to other verses. Maybe there's a way that you can save this on your screen, but we'll be coming back to this verse, several times today. Paul here, the great apostle Paul, he talks about the great pressure he was under, the hardships he faced. And a lot of times when you look at a passage and you make points, you'll start out, you'll kind of go chronologically. I'm going to kind of break that today, even though on Wednesday I talked about how much I love chronology and having things in order and stuff like that. I'm actually going to get the first point from the middle, and then we'll go back to the top, and then we'll go to the end. So, but anyway, Paul talks about the hardships he's under. My first point is that life is full of trouble and hardship and pressure for all of us. None of us are immune. Some other scriptures in Genesis 47:9, Jacob, as he's talking to Pharaoh, he says, "My years have been few and difficult." It's kind of ironic. He's 130 years old when he's saying this. But if you had talked to me and some of the older folks in the church, they would probably have kind of that same sentiment. Yeah, my years are few. You're as you get older, you're like, man, where did time go? And then when you look back on your life, you're like, man, I've actually had a lot of difficulties. And we certainly will look back and see the good and the bad and things like that. But Jacob says, my years have been few and difficult. He's like, man, I faced a lot of difficulties. And if you read the whole story about Jacob, you'll see that he did face a lot of difficulties in his life. In Ecclesiastes 11 and verse 8, Solomon, and this is at the end of Solomon's life, he says, however many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. But let them remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Solomon says, hey, God wants us to enjoy life. He wants to enjoy our years, regardless of how many years we live. He wants us to enjoy them. But to help us, we need to realize that there are going to be days of darkness. There'll be many days of darkness. And, if you haven't faced days of darkness yet, you will. I think about my life. I think about, and I didn't necessarily have an easy life growing up. We worked hard and we weren't, rich by any means. And I learned the value of hard work really early. And I faced pressure of peer pressure. I faced pressure, that normal teens face. But I didn't really have anything traumatic happen in my life until I got about 26 or 27. And hey, life's going pretty smooth. But then, some trauma, some tragedy, some tough times starts happening as You know, I went through a breakup and lost a job and then lost my father. It's going to come for all. For you young people, you know, and I don't want to diminish any hardships you've been through. Some of you may have been through some hardships early in life. And certainly I don't want to diminish any pressure that any of us face. We all face pressure, but hardships will come. It's just a fact of life. In 1 Thessalonians 3, Paul is talking about trials, and he says that we're destined for them. You know, I don't know what's in your destiny. I don't know what's in my destiny, except I do know that I'll face trials. And I do know that you'll face trials. That's part of our destiny. In 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 6, Peter says, in this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. You know, we have all kinds of trials. You know, Paul talks about he was under great pressure. They were under great pressure. You know, you think about life, and you think about the pressure that we face in life. There's pressure to sin. There's pressure that comes from hardships. We'll talk about these a little bit more later on. Paul is under great pressure. He says, far beyond my ability to endure, that we despaired even of life. You know, he had good company. Moses had some of the same thoughts. Elijah tells God, take my life, God. I'm no better than my ancestors. Even Jesus, as he prays in the garden, he's in despair, and he's feeling the pressure. You know, how do we respond to pressure? You know, we've got a choice. We can either give in to evil, or we've got a choice to rely on God, like Paul did. You know, pressure is not a bad thing in and of itself, but how we respond is what determines our relationship with God, and it's what determines our character. You know, you think about in school, those of you who are students, you've got a test coming up. So there's pressure. And hopefully that pressure drives you to do a positive thing, which is study. But you know, that pressure has caused some people to cheat. You know, in jobs, we face pressure. I've been in for a number of years in sales, and there's pressure. There's pressure to lie. There's pressure to be deceitful. I wish I could say that I've never done any of that. I try my best to have integrity, but there's times that I've maybe fudged things that I shouldn't have, and didn't quite have the integrity I should have had. You know, we face pressure, you know, in all kinds of ways. How we handle it is going to determine who we really are. So we are going to all face troubles. We're going to all face pressure. We're going to all face hardships. You're telling me now, Kent, you've got me fully depressed now. Well, that's just the fact of life. I hope you're not depressed. You know, I've got some answers for you too here from the scriptures. So that's always a good thing. And that's the thing, is it's incredible that we have an answer. You know, we face the same problems and issues that everyone else in the world faces. And yes, we may take on some extra problems by deciding to follow Jesus, but we've got the solution. You think about this past year, everybody's faced a lot of the same problems, some worse than others, some different than others, but we've all faced a challenge, but we've got God to help us to deal with the challenges and deal with the pressure that we've faced. My second point is that God gives us the ability to relate to others. Isn't it great to have someone to relate to you? I was at the gym the other day, and there was this guy working out, and he was a good bit younger than me, and it's not not the same background as me, I'm sure. But he had on a shirt that said South Carolina State, which is a college in South Carolina, and so I was like, hey, you go to South Carolina State, and so we started up a conversation, and he worked in the nuclear industry, and my brother worked in the nuclear industry, and so I just felt a bond, a kinship, just from us being from the same state, and then finding out a few other things that we related to. That's how we build a relationship with people. If you bring when we had church physically, you bring someone out to church, and maybe they're a student, you're going to introduce them to other students, or maybe they're an engineer or something like that, so you're going to introduce them to an engineer. If they're an architect, you're going to introduce them to Hoyt. Al and I, we had a background in insurance, and that kind of started us being able to relate to one another. God gives us the ability to relate to others. The first way we can relate is that we all face troubles. So the person that you're thinking about, the person that you're talking to, the person that the person that you may want to help, you've got that in common. And I think if we realize, maybe we're trying to help someone that's going through some serious hardships, and we're like, boy, I don't know if I can help them. Hey, you've been through troubles too. I've been through troubles. I've been, either you've been where they're at, or you're going to be where they're at. That should keep us from looking down on people. That should keep us from judging people. We could be in their same situation, is a thought that we should have. I ran across a quote the other day by a guy named Luke Day. He's a college football strength and conditioning coach, and he's got the responsibility of really preparing about 100 football players for their upcoming season. And he said this. He said, "It is my responsibility to know these men. I want to know the worst thing that ever happened to you, the best thing that ever happened to you, your biggest dream, your biggest fear. If you and I share time and struggle, then you and I will begin to care about each other. You're going to struggle chasing down life's biggest dream, and struggle is inevitable. So let's do it well. If you can learn how to lean into struggle instead of avoid it, we can become uncommon types of men." This is about a football team. Isn't this true about life? First of all, we need to learn. I don't like to struggle. I don't like to even admit that I'm struggling, but we all struggle. And as the sinner will admit, hey, life is all about struggling. I'm going to struggle well. I'm going to share my struggles and share in other people's struggles. The better off we'll all be. In this passage, up in verse 3, God is called the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort. God is the source of compassion and comfort. If we feel compassion and we feel comfort, it's because of God. If we're trying to help other people feel compassion and comfort, it's really God's compassion and God's comfort, and God is the one that's really going to be able to comfort us and others. But he says there in verse 4, who comforts us in all of our troubles, so we can comfort those in troubles with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. You know, God allows us to go through struggles. He allows us to experience things in life. He gets us through things in life so that we can help other people. So we need to learn from the situations that we've been in. You know, first of all, you think about helping someone that's struggling with sin. Have you struggled with sin? You know, anger, pride, lust, selfishness, resentment, attitudes. We've struggled with those things. I've struggled with those things. We can help other people that are struggling with those things. You know, Dan in our group the other night, Dan Satterfield, we've got two Dans in our group, so I have to mention their last names. Dan Satterfield said, hey, if you know someone has struggled with a certain sin, then that's going to cause you to be a little more, you know, willing and eager to go and get help from them. We need to be open. You know, I think we need to be a lot more open. I need to be a lot more open. Have you ever used the excuse? I've said this. I was like, man, here's something I've noticed. People aren't really that open with each other. And so I've said, hey, if other people aren't open, why should I be open? But that's the wrong attitude to take. You know, and I don't think we don't have to tell everybody everything, but we certainly need to have some people that we're really open with. Doesn't it really bond you with people when they're open? In our fellowship group last week, Pat and Penny shared some challenging things that were going on in their life. That bonded me with them. You know, we've had some brothers, some families that have moved in the last 6 months, and Mark has shared some things about his life that made me feel he's vulnerable. Doesn't that make you feel close to someone? Dan Downs and I got together and had a talk, and he was open about his life. He was open about the good and the bad, and so that really helped bond me to that brother. You know, we've been through hardships, and a hardship can be something that maybe we brought on ourselves, or maybe we've partially brought on ourselves, or maybe it's something that totally didn't have anything to do with us. It just happened. You know, maybe we've lost a job, even though it's just because of that's what's going on in our industry. You know, we look back on this year, we didn't cause this pandemic. This kind of came on us. You know, we go through hardships sometimes because people in our family are struggling. We can use those hardships to help other people. I want to ask you this: why do we tend to be unwilling to wade into the troubles of others? You know, we know someone is going through a hardship, and we just kind of want to be on the surface, and we don't want to really wade in there. Or we see a brother or sister, and you know, sometimes you can just tell, man, this brother, he doesn't seem like he's doing very well, or he didn't respond the way that I would normally expect. Okay, am I going to, you know, step in there and maybe ask another question, or am I going to just kind of stay back and say, oh, yeah, I love you, I'll pray for you? You know, those things are good to say, but are we going to wade in a little bit deeper? Why do we not do that? Why are we unwilling to do that sometimes? You know, maybe we think that hey, I'm not qualified. Well, you know, last week Anton and talking about showing empathy, said that, hey, sometimes people just need someone to listen. Aren't we all qualified to listen? I've got 2 ears. I can listen. I can at least listen. And I can't, I don't have to fix everything, but I can listen. Maybe another reason is that we aren't sure what to say, or we're not sure how things are going to go. Wow, what if this happens? What if they say that? How am I gonna help this person? Because I don't know what to say, and I don't know how things are going to go. But I know for me, I think the biggest reason that I don't wade in sometimes is because I think, and I don't know that I really want to go there. I don't want to really give the time and the energy, the emotional energy that it may take to get involved with this person's hardship, to get involved with whatever's going on in their lives. I want to share about a couple of situations that I did have the courage, I guess you could say, to wade into, and just how they turned out is kind of interesting. I've got the best man in my wedding, Lou. He lives in St. Louis, and even though it's been 20 something years since I've lived there, man, almost longer than that, 25 years since I've lived there. We stayed in touch. We're very good friends. I knew his sister too. His older sister was in the church there for a while. She's not in the church there now, but she was in the church there for a while. And so I knew her pretty well. And she was actually the one that introduced Lou and I. But this lady has really had a rough life. She, about 10 years ago, one of her kids, she has 3 kids. One of them committed suicide. Her son committed suicide. And then in November, Lou texted me and said that her daughter had gotten in a car accident and was killed. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I said, man, I'm so sorry. I said, man, Maria's had some hard things happen in her life. And I said, hey, I want to call her. I said, but I'll probably wait, 3 or 4 weeks, till things settle down. And so this was in November. And so I waited, kind of forgot, kind of thought about it, kind of put it off. And then finally, about a month ago, I called Lou. We had a great talk. And I said, hey, I want to get Maria's number. I want to give her a call. So I called Maria, and, once again, I don't know how it's going to go. She didn't answer to start with, so I left a message. Hey, Maria, this is Kent. I've been wanting to call you, and I'm so sorry about your daughter. If you want to talk, please give me a call back. I left a message, something like that. Well, like less than 5 minutes later, she calls me back. And the most interesting thing happened. I said, hello, this is Kent. And before she even said a word, she just started laughing. So here I'm hearing laughing on the other end of the phone. And here, I don't know how this is going to go. This might be awkward. I hadn't talked with her in like over 20 years. And then she's laughing on the other side of the phone. And so I'm like, oh, hey, Maria. And so we had a good talk. We talked for about, 30 minutes or so. And we, cried and had some emotional time, and also laughed about the good times. And I think it helped her. I hope it helped her. It helped me. It encouraged me actually to be able to, to talk with her and have a conversation with her. Another situation. It's been 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I don't know. I lose track of time. But I had a good friend that I had growing up that lived right down the block from me, and he was actually my third cousin, but more than that, he was my friend. We played sports together and hung out together and did a lot of things together. He had been battling cancer, and he had a brain tumor, and it looked like he'd kind of beaten it back, but then it got worse. And I was visiting my family, and heard that he wasn't doing very well, and I was looking up his number at home. He actually he owned and managed the local grocery store there in town. He was still in town. I would see him maybe about every couple of years. When I'd go in the grocery store and talk with him and things like that. But I wanted to go see him, And my sister came back from the grocery store and said, "Hey, Hugh's out there at the grocery store." And my sister told him that I was wanting to get in touch with him, and she said, "Hey, he said he's going to be out there for a while. He wants you to come by and see him." So I ran off to the grocery store, and so I was sitting down with him. They had kind of a food area there. I was sitting down with him, sitting beside him, and we just start talking. And he, because of his brain tumor, he couldn't really communicate. I mean, you could understand him for the most part, but as we talked more and more, as we talked, he got tired, I could tell. And his wife was there with us, and she actually even had to translate some of the things that he was saying there at the end. But man, it was emotional. It was really emotional. And I mean, I cried, he cried, but we also laughed. He wanted to talk about, some of the fun and crazy things that we did growing up. And but it was really an emotional time there, talking to him. And finally, after about 30 minutes, he was pretty worn out just even talking to me. And of course, it was hard to understand what he was saying, but it was a tough time. It was a tough time. But man, I am so glad that I waited in there. I mean, I could have just said, "Oh man, I could have just ignored it." I mean, he's not somebody that was necessarily close to me right now, but I am glad that I made that effort to spend time with him. Yeah, we don't know how it's going to go, but God is going to take care of it. God's going to take care of things for us. We've probably heard the song by Queen and David Bowie, "Under Pressure." I want to read the words of that song. Kind of interesting. Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you, no man asked for. Under pressure that burns a building down, splits a family in two, puts people in the streets. That's okay. That's the terror of knowing what this world is about. Watching some good friends screaming, "Let me out." Tomorrow gets me higher. Pressure on people on the streets. Okay, chipping around, kicking my brains on the floor. These are the days. It never rains, but it pours. People on the streets, people on the streets. It's the terror of knowing what this world is about. Watching some good friends scream, "Let me out." Tomorrow gets me higher, higher, high. Pressure on people on the streets. Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work. Keep coming up with love, but is so slashed and torn. Why? Love, 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 love. Insanity laughs under pressure. We're breaking. Can't we give ourselves one more chance? Why can't we give love that one more chance? Why can't we give love, give love, give love, give love, give love, give love, give love? Because love's such an old-fashioned word, and love dares you to care for the people on the edge of the night. And love dares you to change our way of caring about ourselves. This is our last dance. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure, under pressure, pressure. Wow, that's a deep song. You've probably listened to that song and sang that song like I have, and not really thought of the words. But he mentions on here sitting on the fence. We have the tools to help people, but we just have to decide to get off the fence and help people. Look back in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. I'm sorry, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Let me start that over again. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, back in our passage that you've got your finger holding. The great thing is, and Paul brings it out here in this chapter, he says, we were under great pressure in verse 8, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired even of life. You can imagine what Paul went through. He had people trying to kill him. I mean, imagine that pressure. He says, indeed, in our hearts, we felt the sentence of death. I don't know exactly what was going on. Maybe he thought he was going to die. He thought it'd be better to die. He wanted to die. He said, but this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. I like the way he throws that in there. On God who raises the dead. He's someone that we can rely on. If he raises the dead, then he can certainly help us in our situation. You know, I think by the fact that I didn't have anything extremely difficult in my life for 25, 26 years, that caused me to depend on myself. But then God put me in or allowed me to be in situations where I couldn't depend on myself at all. It was too much for me, and it forced me to depend on God. He says in verse 10, he has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. My last point is that God delivers. God delivers. You know, God has delivered us in the past. You think about it. Think about all the ways and times that God delivered you. You know, if you're a new Christian, God delivered you from your sin, from your empty way of life. He delivered us all from that. And then as we've lived our lives, God has delivered us in every situation, in every pressure we faced, in every hardship and trouble. God has been there to deliver us. He's been there to provide a way out. You know, that should really give us confidence. That should give us faith that in future things we have to face, God's got the power to deliver us. That should give us hope and confidence that in hardships and troubles and struggles that people we love and care for or know, God's going to deliver them. Hey, I know you're going through this right now. God will deliver you. You know, it's interesting too, he goes on to say, on him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us as you help us by your prayers. You know, Jerome talked about how important prayer was. You know what's interesting about prayer? You know, this is something I've come to realize about prayer. I think a lot of my prayers are prayers that I think that, hey, I can answer those prayers. You know, this is something that I'm involved in and that I can be a part of. And sure, sometimes we're the answer to our own prayers by us taking action and things like that. But then you start praying about things that you have no control over. None of, you know, you're not going to be involved in the actions at all. You have no power at all. And then seeing God work in those situations, that is really powerful. And that makes you see, hey, the power was in prayer. The power was in God. Even before, when I thought maybe it was my actions, it's really God. You know, we've got the power of prayer. And God will deliver us and deliver others if we believe in the power of prayer. Hopefully, in spite of us talking about some challenging things and some tough things, and maybe bringing up some bad memories in your life, hopefully we've closed out positive. You know, we just need to realize that troubles, hardships, and pressure, they're a part of life. No matter how together somebody looks, They're facing hardships. They're facing pressure. They're facing problems. We need to let God use us to provide comfort for others. We need to be willing to feel the pressure that others feel. You know, I think it's easy if you have kids, it's easy to feel their pressure. It's easy, you know, Paul talked about in the verses up above. Let me go back to this verse 6. He says, if we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. You know, with our kids, we get distressed when they're distressed. I think it's easier for us to empathize with them because we love them and we care about them, and our lives are wrapped up in theirs. Can we extend that to other people and feel the pressure and the hurt that they feel? And then ultimately, we need to have the faith that God will deliver. God will deliver us, and God will deliver the people that we care for. Amen. I love you guys, and let's have a great day. Thank you.